Glasses off, lipstick on, ready to go.
Yeah.
How are you?
Doing okay. A little tired.
Staying up late working on showcase stuff, aren't you?
I was. I did stay up too late last night. And then I was crawling around under the house today.
Yes, you did some hard work.
It was, yeah.
Some crawl space work.
Yeah. Needed to be done, but it was so hot under the house. I guess that makes sense because that's where the furnace is located.
Yes.
But I went down there all bundled up.
Because it's outside.
And it's cold. It wasn't all that cold today, but I thought it would be. And then I slowly was climbing back out and taking off a layer. And I was finally down there in a t-shirt and I was just sweating.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I was right by the furnace. So
okay.
Anyway, that was my afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a really nice break to not be crazy busy. It's taking me a little while to get used to it.
Yeah.
To not have gigs for a week and a half or something like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, they're starting again now, but it's taken a while for me to downshift and actually relax.
Yeah.
But it's nice. But I have lots to talk about this time.
Yeah.
Lots of little things.
Yeah, well, let's start talking about it.
Well, let's talk about maybe top of the line there, the top of the list that we got written up there. You had a show canceled.
We mentioned it in the last podcast that we were actually getting some snow, and then we had what apparently people thought was going to be, and maybe it was for some people, just a snowpocalypse. We wound up getting kind of a lot of snow, but it, wasn't bad.
I mean, a lot more than we've gotten this year, but I mean, it was.
Yeah, it didn't.
Over here, it was a few inches.
Yeah, it wasn't. But apparently people thought it was bad enough that a bunch of shows got canceled. Apparently everybody's shows got canceled Friday.
Well, Kelsey said that she got a foot near her house.
Yeah. I guess some places maybe got even more than a foot.
Yeah.
So I had a show with Halves In planned, and sure enough, middle of the day, they decided to just reschedule and cancel and not have people on the roads, which I think is a smart choice, because it could have been bad, and that's, smart thing to do. Mm-hmm. I feel like we did the show because we had a big before the show rehearsal and ran the entire set twice. So partially in my head, it feels like we did the show, but boy, there is just nothing better than a canceled show.
You jaded musician, you.
I thought I was going to be out all night, fighting the weather on the way home, and instead I got to just sit at home with you.
Yeah.
And
we had dinner together and watched some TV.
Yeah, so it was
so nice and cozy and quiet.
It was a blast. So that show is rescheduled to February or something. They had to kick it out pretty far. But anyway, cool. So there was that. And then you...
all these notes that I have up on the screen here aren't even necessarily in chronological order, but I had lots of meetings, lots of stuff online. So I am now a board member of the International Voice Teachers of Mix. So not only am I a mentor teacher, I'm now on the board as of last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. And that makes me on 2 boards now all of a sudden. I guess that's what happens when you get to be in your 50s. You just start getting invited to be on boards.
You just start joining boards?
So... I'm honored, and I hope I can help push the organization forward. But we had a board meeting, and then we had a mentor meeting, so I had 3 hours of meetings on Friday morning. Then we had a group class meeting. Right. So at Performance High, we are going to start offering vocal group classes, which we've never done before. We've only had vocal private lessons, and we've had rock bands, we've all kinds of classes, but we haven't done vocal instruction in groups. And so we had a meeting to talk about how to make it a good offering, how to make it fun, how to make it a great balance of education and performance, and make sure that people who sign up for it, really get good value out of it.
Yeah, what that's going to look like.
Yeah, because with the private lesson, especially voice, you can really go with no curriculum. I think it's really beneficial to have
That's interesting, right.
Yeah, it's beneficial to have a curriculum or a book that you work from for the physical instruments that you can see.
Sure.
With voice, I'm not saying you couldn't, but I've never had a teacher who gave me a curriculum.
Right.
It's always because you have a voice you've been using your whole life. All we need to do is figure out what's the difference between where you are, how you are using it now, and how you need to use it for your goals. And that pathway is different for everyone.
For everyone. Right.
Yeah. So that's why I've resisted group classes for a long time, because I thought, well, if voice instruction is so individualized, how could we possibly offer a quality product or service in class format? But we talked about it and realized that, yes, while that path is different for everyone, especially for beginning singers, there's a ton of foundation that's the same for everybody. Plus, for a lot of people, just the chance to sing in front of other people and get some feedback is valuable. For many people, group lessons are going to be great because they're cheaper than private lessons, and they're more structured, and you aren't like on the spot so much.
Right.
You can kind of hide in numbers, you know?
That would be that is going to be great for nervous people. And then, we've talked about having a little more curriculum as far as like making sure that people get core skills down.
Yeah.
Core concepts down.
Yeah.
Even if you're not really, there's a lot of, like you said, just foundational things.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I don't know if I've shown you Kristen's if you've seen Kristen's milestone checklist or skills checklist.
I saw it briefly, yeah. I didn't really look through it.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Well, Kristen is good with the old words.
So it's a spreadsheet where there's like 10 or 12 sections, main sections, that start with match pitch.
Right.
And end with, a dynamic, engaging performance of a song.
Yeah.
And then everything in between, identify chest voice, identify head voice, be able to move between them smoothly. There's like just all of these things that every singer must do.
Right.
Basically, like these skills. And then in each section, there are beginner, intermediate, and advanced skills. Now, you wouldn't think that there would be a beginner and intermediate and advanced level of skill in the category of match pitch or sing on pitch.
Right. But of course there is.
There is, because a beginning level skill would be singing along with someone who's singing a note.
Right.
Like match a human's voice. An intermediate might be singing a scale unaccompanied and staying on key.
And actually, getting the scale right.
Yeah. And an advanced skill might be singing an entire song a cappella without drifting off key.
Right. Or, or it's as simple as like certain intervals are just harder to reliably hit. Like not even just because they're bigger, but just sort of like that tuning in on a third.
That's easy, but hitting a tritone, I can't do it.
It's very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, you had even more meetings, right?
Let's see. We had an album release workshop, which wasn't a meeting; it was a class, but it was online. And that was with Kelsey Larcius Miguel of Kelzana Artist Management. That was a boots on the ground. Here's where we log into the copyright office. Here's where we log into CBaby.
That's so cool.
Here's all the ways you can distribute your music. Let's go actually do it.
Right.
On one of them. So.
Right.
And then tonight we had an inside track session with Penn Beldock, who was a Performance High client for a long, long time. I started with her.
For a very long time.
Yeah, I started with him when she was in sixth grade, I think.
Wow.
Or when she was, sixth grade, not when she was 6. But yeah, she started taking lessons at Rocket Space. That's when I still worked at Rocket Space. So it was pre-2014.
Pre-2014.
Ooh, yes. And she's 23 now.
Yeah.
And she just got off tour with 21 Pilots. Her first tour was with the Killers.
Yeah.
Crazy. She's a monitor engineer.
Right.
Or a PA team. PA tech is the job role. So she had some great inside scoop on what that life is like.
Right, what the touring life is like. Yeah, and for her to be out with those levels of production is just amazing.
It's crazy. 21 Pilots was recording a live album on this one. And so, at least at their home location in Cleveland. And so they wanted 40 crowd mics. So gosh. She had to set up 40 crowd mics around the arena.
Jeez.
So they had most of them up front, like attached to other gear. But they had a bunch of them all around the top level of the arena where there were people attending. And so her job during the show was to keep running around the top level not the whole show. She was also doing monitors, but to like make sure that the mics were not either being like screamed into or disappearing.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet they did that for the Atmos mixes.
Oh, dude, that's right.
To provide ambience.
Ambiance.
Ambiance. It would be ambience in this case.
Yeah, I guess that's a very different word.
Yeah.
Ambiance versus ambience.
But, you know, Atmos is multi-dimensional audio, sort of like surround sound, but the next generation of surround sound. So you can literally, if you're hearing it on an Atmos system, you're literally hearing, if you imagine yourself in a simple concert hall, you're hearing the performers in the middle, and then you're hearing stuff echoing up in the corners, and you're hearing stuff echoing in the corners behind you. It's very immersive audio.
Yeah.
So I bet that's why they wanted 40 mics up, was like so that you could really feel like you were standing in a particular place.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, Atmos is so big now. But well, that's great. And I didn't do the inside track with you. But yeah, lots of other stuff going on.
Yeah, random stuff. Oh, I've been preparing for a gig that's going to be pretty fun, I think. It's an 80s themed gig with Rachel Talby. Mm-hmm. We're going to play at Bierstadt, which is like 2 blocks from the studio.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to think of what that venue was, and I couldn't. But that should be...
Yeah. It's been fun to prepare some stuff. And she's open to suggestions. So I was like, you know, I'll be a team player and throw in a couple of ideas. And I threw in a couple of songs that have been project songs for me in the past.
Right.
And I'm not sure whether I'm going to end up regretting it. So
some of them are hard. That bass line to Rio is like...
Yeah, Rio by Duran Duran.
By Duran Duran.
There's so many ghost notes. I might have to strip a lot of the ghost notes out just to keep up and be hit the downbeats.
I was goofing with it, and I couldn't get all the ghost notes in.
The thing is, I have a video on YouTube where I do play that song at speed with ghost notes but I worked on it for weeks.
Right. It was one of your project songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then another song that I suggested that I did when I was taking lessons with Alex Goldberg, and I actually wrote this one out in sheet music. I transcribed it as an exercise. Was "The Love Cats" by The Cure.
Oh yeah,
it's got such a cool. It's an upright bass on that one, but it's such a cool bass line.
Yeah, that is a great one. That's another hard one though. That's got some notes in it,
and it has maybe too many song sections for a band that's not going to rehearse. So I'm going to give everybody the option to not play that song. It wasn't a good choice on my part.
It does have kind of a lot of sections. You were messing with it earlier today. And
I know it really well because it was one of my favorite songs, but that's me, so that was maybe not smart. But anyway, the gig's going to be fun. I'm going to pull out that old 80s ski jacket that my mom gave back to me.
Nice.
That I recorded Rio in.
On YouTube.
On YouTube,
yeah.
Where it was bass cover with Cat.
Right.
Remember? Because Shanti liked to lick my bass strings, and so I was recording Rio, and it was going great, but then she walked in the room and hopped up on my lap and started licking the strings.
Yes.
And screwing me up. Anyway, speaking of Shanti, we have to take a moment of silence.
Yeah.
It has been 1 year and, what is today, the 11th? Four days. Yeah, 1 year and 4 days since she left this earth. Well, I guess she did because they cremated her at the Dumb Friends League. But yeah, it's been a year.
Unbelievable that it has been a year. Unbelievable to me that it has been only a year.
Yeah. So you feel like it's been longer that she's been gone, huh?
I do. It doesn't seem possible. Well, that was such a big event in our lives.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem possible that was only a year ago, just because like so much stuff feels like it's happened.
It does feel like a lot has happened in a year. Yeah.
Even though that's one of those milestone.
Yeah. So anyway, moment of silence for the Shanti, who still appears in our bumper music and on our thumbnails.
Yeah. So.
And in my bass cover with Cat.
Yeah. On YouTube. Yeah. Well, that sounds like a fun gig, and you picked up a few more Tunisia gigs.
Yeah, I got 3 more gigs, 2 on bass and 1 I will be singing.
Yeah.
I'll be singing with them on December 21st. And they also needed another vocalist for some gigs, so I got Morgan. I got Morgan in on those. Mm-hmm. So we'll have fun. We'll be on maybe all 3 of those together. I'm not really sure.
Oh. What does Morgan use for her last name as a performer? Just Morgan Lowe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I don't think. It's a good question because she released some music, and I don't know if she goes by Morgan Lowe on Spotify.
Yeah. I had just never thought about it before.
Yeah,
So
I don't know.
Yeah. And we're flying through this one. This one might be a short one.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe you could edit that out. Nobody wants to hear coughing. Not going to?
Probably not going to.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
What else?
So I spent a lot of time this weekend doing one thing.
Yes, you certainly did.
one big thing. And that is planning out another trip to New Zealand. Woo-hoo.
You're going to New Zealand in February.
Yep, I am. I'm going for 2 weeks by myself.
Yep.
And I'm going to do a lot of camping and hiking and outdoorsy stuff. I'm going to go soak up 14 hours of sun a day in the southern hemisphere where it is summer.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited. So I took some lessons from my last trip, one of which was if you don't plan it out in detail before you go, you're going to have to still spend the time planning it out in detail once you get there. Because I had a skeleton of a plan. I had it pretty nailed down for the first 2 weeks when you were there, but like I had kind of just a general direction I was going to drive.
Maybe I'll go do this, maybe I'll go do that.
Yeah, but then I had to go look up lodging every day and figure out, the attractions I wanted to see every day. And it's like, it took like an hour every day out of my travel. So I took a lesson from that, and I'm planning it out in more detail and booking my hostels and stuff in advance, and my campsites. And then the other thing that was a lesson I took from the last trip was most places I stayed last time, I only stayed one night because I was trucking around the South Island.
South Island, yeah.
I wanted to see everything, but it did mean, it's not just the inconvenience of, pitching a tent every night and then packing it up every next morning. The bigger inconvenience is that all of the places that you need to check in, like the top 10 holiday sites or any of the holiday parks where you camp or hostels, they all have a time by which you must check in.
Right.
And that can kind of get in the way of, like, if you go on a late hike or you go out for a late dinner or you want to take your time driving or something. It kind of puts a frame around your day that you can't easily get around.
Right.
So I'm staying 2 nights in every place that I'm going for just a little bit more flexibility. But
I think that's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about one particular campsite, which is nestled in the valley right below Mount Cook, or it's also called Aoraki in Maori. It's the highest mountain in New Zealand, and it's spectacular. I did a quick, 1.5 hour hike when I was there last time, but I didn't camp there. But it's apparently the creme de la creme of the campsites in New Zealand. Just spectacular views. So I've got 2 nights there.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
And it's so cheap. I think it's $10 a night there.
I know. The camping is pretty amazing. And then I don't think you wound up camping at one of the designated night sky places. But, I mean, I even remember several places we were in New Zealand where the night skies are just stunning because, they have major cities, but they don't have that many of them. And you don't have to be very far outside of whatever for the sky to just be...
Yeah. They do have 2, on the South Island alone, they have 2 international dark sky designated sites.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
One of them has no camping anywhere near it.
Okay.
You just have to drive into it and see it at night.
And
I'm going to be not too far from there, less than an hour, so I might see that. Or the other one is maybe an hour from where I'm camping under Mount Cook, and I will be hanging out in that area for a couple days. So that's on Mount John. There's an observatory there. You can pay and have a guided tour and get to use their telescopes and stuff. But of course, that's already all booked.
Yeah, right.
Unless you're willing to go to do the tour at 2:15 a.m. They still have some 2:15 a.m.
Wow, that would mess you up. Yeah.
That's not for me.
Yeah, well, and it's not a scientific mission, so no need to.
But anyway, so I posted in my coaching group, Build a Music School. which has a Facebook group.
Yeah.
And the guy who runs it lives in New Zealand. He's a Kiwi. He's a New Zealander, Johnny Wilson. And so I posted in the group seeing if anybody lived in Christchurch. And yep, there's a music school owner in Christchurch I'm going to try to meet up with. And Johnny said, hey, if you want to just hop a flight over to Wellington, we can have lunch. So I might do that.
That might be very worth doing if you're there anyway. And then Christchurch and Wellington, I mean, gosh, that's got to be
It's an hour.
Yeah, hour flight.
Yeah.
And, but it'll be also exciting just to spend some time in Christchurch again. I mean, I thought that was such a cool city.
Christchurch or Wellington?
Well, I mean, both, really. I mean, I liked Wellington most of all when we were there. I mean, Auckland is really great too, but Wellington has a real New York-y vibe.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. But in a very clean, organized, walkable way. Like, you know, you could take a 20-minute walk and be in a totally different part of the city, just because it's all packed in there. And yeah, I would love to get back to Wellington personally, but the main thing is the idea was you were going to spend most of your time on the southern island.
Yeah.
Wellington's on the bottom of the northern island.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, you could hop over there for a day.
Yeah.
Get some of that amazing coffee that they have in New Zealand.
Oh, that's right.
Every single place.
Every place in Wellington. Oh.
I mean,
coffee and pastries, no matter where you went, it was so good.
And you read in the touristy stuff before we went, like, oh, this is like a mecca for coffee culture and whatever, and you're like, well, that sounds silly, and then you go, we got coffee, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, yep. Like, yeah, they take it serious. Pretty cool. Well, so that is big news. You're going to New Zealand, and you were just saying you've got quite the winter booked.
I know. I get to go to Tucson right between Christmas and New Year's, and then you're going to come join.
Yep.
And then we go to Puerto Vallarta at the beginning of January, and then I'm going to New Zealand in February for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to the Build a Music School conference in Cancun at the end of March.
Yeah.
And then gigs are going to pick up, and I won't be doing any of that
anymore.
Yeah,
I won't be doing any of that anymore, but you've got quite the winter planned for yourself, so that is good, and I'm taking the minimum amounts of planes possible, so that is good for me. Yep. Christmas is going to be rough. That's a lot of flights. Yep. So
yeah,
going to be hard. Anyway, moving to close it out, I guess we can do a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are these internet guys, and I just ran into it randomly. It's two older guys.
Oh, yeah.
They're called Boz and Pete.
B-A-S.
B-A-S and Pete. Which I guess is short for Sebastian, I would assume.
Oh, okay.
And they're older guys, maybe like definitely 60s, maybe 70s. And they rap. And they're actually pretty good. And I don't know if they're writing this stuff themselves, because some of the writing is just brilliant.
Brilliant. It's dense and it's so good.
Dense. A lot of it is like diss rap and kind of gangster rap. It's about gangster stuff. And that's part of the thing. They're British, and they wear like really like traditional British 3-piece suits, and they're like super dressed up.
White hair, red face.
Yeah.
And they're throwing down.
And they're good. And again, I don't know if somebody writes for them, but like, I mean, some of the lines are, and I pointed one of them out to you. Their videos are on Facebook and YouTube. It's just sort of meme kind of stuff, but it's pretty funny. But one of the best lines was, I'm a Tallahassee, sing for me T-Pain, which is brilliant because T-Pain is Tallahassee Pain, and the, not rhyme, but the like wordplay of Tallahassee, sing for me Tallahassee Pain. It's
like a rhyme. It's like an invisible rhyme.
It's like an invisible rhyme.
It's a rhyme with a word that is only referred to.
Yeah.
Or referred at. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. Which I guess most people don't know that T-Pain is Tallahassee Pain.
I did not know that.
T-Pain is from Tallahassee. Not that, I mean, I don't know if we were there at the same time or whatever, but I was just like floored by the brilliance of that. It is like it's like a rhyme that doesn't really exist. You've got to fill it in your own head. How clever it is.
Meanwhile, all these other dense rhymes are going by.
Yeah.
And with a lot of British terminology too, right?
A lot of British terminology. It's sort of hard to understand unless you get some of the slang. Because it is all like heavy British slang. And if you listen to a fair amount of rap that comes out of Britain, which it's not like I've listened to a ton, but I've listened to some, and you know, you hear the same slang terms, so I knew some of them a little better. But you know, and then just good old fashioned one like they call ladies birds.
Right.
You know, so some of it's pretty easy to get. But anyway, check out Boz and Pete. It's goofy, but it's pretty fun.
It's quality.
Yeah, it is quality. I mean, it's goofy and silly, but they spend time on it for sure.
Yeah.
And they have these like low, scratchy old guy voices, and it's pretty fun.
And they're for real. They're not just doing it on the internet. They have concerts. Like you showed me some of their videos. Like they're live.
Like they go on tour,
big crowds, and
stuff. They do like I mean, I think they're doing like 300 seaters, 500 seaters, but you know, they go on tour. You know, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's never too late to start.
That is a great example of it being never too late to start. Although, you know, I was saying hip hop started in the 80s. Those guys could have been in on the ground floor.
True.
And
they're just hitting now.
You know? It's also never too late for something to happen for you. Right. So, anyway, what's coming up? Anything cool coming up?
We got the showcase coming up.
Already working on that. I was telling you, I thought originally when I was just sort of listening through stuff, I was like, oh, this is going to be a super easy one. And then as I started digging into the songs, I've got some work to do for sure. Some of them are, you know, if you were just playing chords, they would be very easy. But if you do all the actual guitar parts they're doing, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to practice that. But anyway, so showcase coming up. Mm-hmm. You know, it's looking slow on the gig front, and I'm kind of doing fine. You've got a few.
I've got these two different. I've got the Rachel 80s gig, so I've got some.
Yeah.
Mostly not hard, but a few harder songs and some new songs for that. And then I've got a, you know, I don't have a song list yet, but I'll sing with Tunisia, so that's going to be a whole 2 hours to prepare.
Yeah, for sure. You've got some prep.
Yeah. And we have Petty Nick's gig at Buffalo Rose on November 30th.
Right.
And we have, you know, the new Petty Nick's add-on project, which I think we've mentioned, right?
Yeah, we have talked about that. Yeah.
So we've got new songs to learn for that because we're going to try to just rehearse that at sound checks. I mean, we'll probably get together in person, but the less we do of that, the better.
Right. And it's, well, it'll be, you know, it'll be fine. So lots to prepare, and, you know, it's not bad having a little time off to just have some time off.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We are going to get out of here. We're not going to do a goofy, fun thing this time. We're just going to get out of here with the normal old stuff. Thanks for watching. We are sponsored, as always, by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.
We said we weren't going to do anything.
Why are you still sitting there?
Because we said we weren't going to do anything.